Welcome to Season 8 of Airhead Institute, your 45-minute power-up at noon Eastern. This season, we're cutting through the noise. Mondays, we get answers with Perplexed. Tuesdays, watch the battle unfold in the TTV showdown. Wednesdays, we explore the takeover with AI jacking. Thursdays, we uncover hidden AI gems, just a taste. And Fridays, we enter the mind of the machine in the Musk Matrix. We're making AI practical, powerful, and accessible for everyone. No tech background? No problem. Whether you're a student, teacher, or lifelong learner, just show up. Guided by your hosts, AI Junior and AI Johnny, we're keeping it bold, brainy, and built for real-world impact. AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. Don't get left behind.
Welcome back to Season 8 of Airhead Institute, your daily AI class. You are tuned into Episode 1 of Hidden AI Gems, Just a Taste. I'm AI Johnny, explorer of the digital frontier, and with me is my trusty fellow archaeologist, AI Junior, the undisputed champion at excavating priceless AI artifacts from the depths of the AI data stream. Here at the Institute, we scour the market to find the greatest new tools and breakthroughs so you don't have to. The concept of hidden AI gems is simple. We aren't doing a deep dive today. We're giving you just enough to wet your beak. We sample the tech here to show you what's possible. Then we reach out to the tool maker and ask if they'd like us to produce an entire series teaching you every feature and benefit. You'll see that launch right here on this channel. But today is just the appetizer. And today's hidden gem is none other than Z.ai. Z.ai is the large language model that hit the scene with a massive explosion, skyrocketing from total obscurity right onto the number 6 spot of the global leaderboard. It went from unknown to all the rage overnight. So buckle up, airheads. Here is your taste of Z.ai. Junior?
AI Johnny, that is such an amazing intro. So thank you guys for actually joining to our daily show. So if you guys are joining us here for the first time, we actually teach AI to anyone from the ages of 9 years old up to 93 years old. So, just excited for you guys to be here. And thanks everyone for actually joining the live show. And everybody can actually watch this in the recorded section later in the at the membership website. All right, so AI Johnny, here's the thing. So hidden AI gems, we've been actually scouring the web and actually finding all the hidden tools that we actually need to show on this show. And so we actually found one. We actually found Z.ai. And because we're using Perplexity as our large language model of the month, what I did was went over to Perplexity and I said, what is the single most mind-blowing fact about Z.ai? Right? So I did a search with our large language model of the month, for which is in January. And it came back with actually something really good. It says, as of today, Z is the first and only large language model AI to go IPO, right? So they're actually competing with, OpenAI and Anthropic, and they're all still private. While Z.ai just rang the bell on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and it isn't just a startup anymore, it's a public powerhouse. So, but that's on the business side. So you want to know about the tech, if it's any good? So let's find out. So AI John, you want to say anything before we actually jump into a quick wow demo of Z.ai?
Yeah, I do. So Z.ai not only jumped onto the scene and onto the LLM stats leaderboard in a big way, but it came across my radar and I instantly said, I got to find out who these people are. Did a little digging, went into X and found that Z.ai had a location there, talked to it a little bit, said who's in charge of marketing and education of their product in the US. They gave me a name. I asked for an email. They gave me an email. I reached out to to this person at Z.ai. We had a nice Zoom call talk. It was 5 o'clock in the evening in Beijing, but it was 4 a.m. here. I remember ripping a Junior out of bed to have that conversation. And what we found out is that what we're doing here at Airhead Institute has some value to those folks over at Z.ai, both as an educational platform so that we can start educating people here in the United States on this new explosive platform. We can also help market it because there are two different projects that we're running. We have the daily school, and if we choose Z.ai or any other large language model as our standard or official large language model for the classroom, that of course has value not only to the company that makes the model, but the students that come in here will be always using the same thing while they're learning. They're certainly free to, when they're doing their homework and stuff, to use other ones, but it's got some value to these large language models if we standardize on a very specific AI engine, and that's what we're going to do. We also write daily AI jacking articles, which is a way of taking tools and giving them applications with which those tools can be used. A tool in and of itself isn't valuable until you have a project with which you can use that tool. So what we're doing with the AI jacking is we're breaking down blueprints of the most successful businesses, most successful influencers, most successful celebrities in the United States, breaking down what they do into its rawest form using our AI model, whichever is our official, and then re-engineering it also with an AI model so that people can compete with industry leaders on their own, because AI is being used as your wind tunnel to make that happen. So Junior and I are hopeful that we have good conversations with this company, Z.ai. We hope that they'll partner with us either as their marketing partner or as their education partner, or both. But we'll see how that goes. That's really all I have to say about this one right now. But you should definitely tune in next week because you have these conversations, and pretty much anything in that 2026 moves very, very quickly. So we expect more soon on that.
Definitely. And just because today is just a taste episode, next week we are going to feature another hidden gem. So we're going to be scouring the web to be figuring out what should be the showcase of the appetizer course for the large language model or the hidden AI gem. So let's go over to Z.ai. So the first thing that before we go over there is once you actually go to the leaderboard, let me bring that up on the screen. The first thing that would wow you guys is you've probably didn't even hear about this company. The reason why you didn't hear about this company is because it's not an American company. And because it's not an American company, all the news and all the information that actually gets circulated in the United States is all about the US-based companies. But check this out, guys. Look at what we have. We have on the leaderboard, we have companies like Google, we have Anthropic, we have OpenAI, and here we have a unknown company to the United States, and this is actually Z.ai. And Z.ai is actually number 6 and number 7 on the leaderboard. And that is actually quite impressive for a company that is unknown to the US, that is actually trying to break into the US market. So what we're doing here is just giving you guys a taste of this big thing. So does anybody have heard of Z.ai? I'm gonna put your hands up in the comments, or chime in if you actually heard of Z.ai before. All right, see, AI Johnny, I think that proves our point, right? It's unfortunate that a company like this that is so great doesn't have the actual marketing in the US to actually show these things. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna show, the first thing is that they're number 6 and number 7 on the leaderboard. The second thing we're gonna show is if you scroll all the way to the right, this is the next impressive thing. They're actually one of the cheapest in the top 10. And because they're one of the cheapest, you're actually thinking about it compared to, OpenAI, they're only about 1/10 the price. So because they're about 1/10 the price, it actually makes it great for developers to get access to a model this cheap. And that actually works really, really well. So AI Johnny, let me switch over to a chat prompt. So to be able to get access to Z.ai, and you guys can actually go over to this link. I'm going to drop it in the chat so you guys can see. I'm going to bring it up on the screen so you guys can see where it is. So if you go over to chat.z.ai, that will bring up the chat interface. And it's no different than if you have, access to, Perplexity, which again is our large language model of the month here at Airhead Institute for the month of January. So if you actually go over to chat.z.ai, you'll be able to log in with a Google account or sign up for a free account with the chat interface. Now, let me make this bigger for you guys. Now, if you guys are following along while we're actually doing this, if you go to z.ai, you have a lot of features. This is just a taste, we're going to drop in a nice little prompt here that would actually take a little bit of time in other large language models. But check this out, guys. We're going to say create a complete, engaging 45-minute beginner lesson plan on how large language models work. Now, I'm just going to hit enter, and you'll notice almost instantly it starts thinking, right? It actually received my requests. So this is a thinking model, just like all the other thinking models out there. It then understands just like a normal large language model, goes ahead, breaks down all your requests, and it says, hey, this is a 45-minute engaging beginner lesson plan on how large language models work. And then we're going to actually have that data come back any second. So, hey, Johnny, what do you think so far?
I think you're moving along. Full disclosure, I'm having some internet stability problems. So every once in a while you're breaking up, but I'm still online. If it continues this way, I might back out for a minute and come back in. But right now we're good. And I think you're doing a good job at giving them just that little taste.
Of course, of course. What's funny, AI Johnny, I may also be having some internet issues as well because I actually did this search earlier before the show, and you can see it did not take this long. So let me go ahead. Oh, look at it, came back. So I may also be having some internet issues as well. Does anybody see me coming in a little choppy or a little slow? I apologize for that. This is not usually the case. So it might actually be me, AI Johnny. So if you notice here, the actual thing is actually coming out really, really fast, right? It's actually spitting out a bunch of tokens per minute, actually at a really good rate. And it actually goes over a lesson plan. It says what I need to do in the first 5 minutes. It talks about the cold open hook, it goes on and on and on, which is a really, 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 really great thing here that it actually formats it really, really well on the actual screen. So you can just copy paste. It doesn't have a whole bunch of pictures or layout issues that you have to actually have an issue with. So first of all, does anybody have any questions on this specific portion of what we're actually showing here with Z.ai? All right. So if you notice, it gave us that cold open hook before I even finished clicking on the button. It suggested an interactive guest challenge. It did a whole bunch of ideas that actually are pretty amazing. So I'm actually quite impressed how it actually, figured out what needs to be done based on the data that is actually trained on. Now, AI Johnny, let's go to the word of the day because the word of the day is actually quite important because this is what Z.ai does very, 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 very different compared to all the other US based large language models. So let me know when you're ready, AI Johnny.
I'm just trying to spot it on my document. We didn't pull it out, did we?
No. So while you're doing that, AI Johnny, I'm just gonna show you guys on the large language model leaderboard, and I'm gonna go here, and if I go here and show you guys, this is one of the open weight or open source large language model. So let me scroll to. It's kind of hard to see, but GLM's 4.7. So I'm gonna just scroll over to the right, and you see here, it is the only large language model that is open in the top 10 list, right? So that's actually quite impressive. So yeah, Johnny, let me know when you're actually ready for
Yeah,
that.
it's done on page 3, brother. Here it is. The word of the day is open weights. If you're going to hang out with Z.ai, you need to know the term open weights. Here is a simple breakdown. Closed models, like ChatGPT, are like a restaurant. You can eat the food, but you can never see the secret recipe. Open weights means the chef gives you the recipe book. The model's parameters are publicly released. This means that anybody, including you, can download these models, run them on your own laptop, fine-tune them, or build your own app without paying a monthly subscription to get a giant tech overlord. Z.ai is leading the charge here. By releasing these powerful weights, they are giving the innovation power pack to the people. Your laptop could soon run tomorrow's frontier AI. So there's open weights for you.
Yeah, so guys, just if you're not really sure what open weights is, you can definitely ask your questions in the comments. No, in the United States, we're not necessarily used to these open weight models or open source models. And I want to stress something very, very important, right? if you have something that's open source or open weight, and if you're not specifically a developer, because I know we have a lot of different industries here. We have kids going to school that are in prep school and primary school. We have kids in high school, middle school. We have people in college. We have people working at their jobs and they just want upskilling, and every range of people. Now, depending on where you are, you may really not care about open weights, but let me tell you why it's important to want open weights. Being able to understand what the model's actually doing, or the actual AI is actually doing, and be able to tweak it and change it based on your specificity. AI, Jenny, that's such a hard word for me to say. Right? If you were to change it based on your own liking or want to be able to tweak it, you can actually do things that you don't have access to with, say, for example, an open AI. Now, we do know there are lots of other open weight models and open source models that are available, but guess what? They're not in the top 10. Z.ai is actually in the top 10. And this is the part that blows my mind. Imagine the first IPO based company that actually is open weights, and they actually they went public, and they're saying, hey, you know what, you can get to see and have access to all our information, and you can have the model, and that is their business model, which is actually quite clever. It's very different than the Americans at OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini. It's actually rather interesting.
So when are we going to use that?
AI, Johnny, you know what? What we can do is when we actually, have enough hardware that we can actually run these things. I do know that we can actually get some local, NVIDIA chips and actually run some inference models on our machines, but they are still not fast enough based on these cloud providers. So, we do. Speaking of which, AI, Johnny, you just made me talk about the next. Let's jump to the next segment, and the next segment is the following. So, AI, Johnny just mentioned the following. How or when are we going to use it? So if you notice, when I was actually over um at Z.ai, when I had this button here, that share session. Now that share session wasn't always there. If I open up a Z.ai fresh chat, you'll notice it actually gets replaced with a different button here. Now, this button here is access to their API. So AI Johnny asked a really great question. When are we going to use it? So most developers would care about the actual access to the API. And an API, for those who actually are not familiar, means Application Programming Interface, or API. It's the way how you interact with the actual application with again, don't necessarily want to get too technical, but it's a way to be able to interact with another system through a standard protocol. That's really what I want to mention, for not necessarily giving a too much advanced details on what an API is. But the fact that we actually have an API, developers now can access their model directly by actually signing up for a plan. Now, one thing, AI Johnny, that I did mention, they're about 1/10 the price. So they actually have three plans that you can actually go and get access to, and now it's about 1/10 to 1/20th the price of a typical you know ChatGPT access. So developers actually will have a way to be able to access this much cheaper than the American counterparts. So I think that's rather interesting. So you can
What would
start
be
using
more
it.
interesting is when you bought on one of these plans, if there was a little checkbox on the bottom that said, add on the official Z.ai education class, and bumped it up by like $5.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. AI Johnny. All right, guys, so we're pausing here for a second. Does anybody have any questions specifically on number one, how do I access Z.ai? So just to recap, to access Z.ai, you go to chat.z.ai, or you can just go to Z.ai directly. And a little fun fact that when I was doing some research on Perplexity, guys, is the following. Z.ai bought the domain for about 360,000. Now, I didn't vet that information to see if it's actually true or not, but getting that really nice Z.ai domain name is actually rather clever. So kudos for them for getting that domain name. Rita, I see you actually have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
My question is, you said they traded on the stock market. Looking at everything and knowing everything that you know about them, would you purchase their stock?
That's amazing, Rita. So just to recap, so the stock market is actually broken up into different countries and regions. So the first thing is in the United States, we normally buy and trade stocks in the US. So we buy and trade stocks on the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq, those type of things that we do here in the United States. In other countries, they have their own stock market. So, for example, I am from Jamaica. We actually have a stock market in Jamaica. Americans cannot buy stocks on the Jamaican Stock Exchange because of certain rules. Same thing in different places. No, there are different brokers that allow you to buy stocks on different exchanges in different places. So just the reason why I gave you a little background, Rita, is because Z.ai is actually listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Because you're listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, you need to actually have access to a broker as an American that gives you access to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and also allows you to buy that specific security. Now, there's a lot of details that go on, but definitely, if you have access to a broker, if you actually have access to those type of things, definitely it would be something that you can definitely look into. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Rita?
Z.ai is here to stay. So Elon Musk owns X.ai, and our friends in Beijing own Z.ai. Don't you think maybe you and I should corner Y.ai?
Johnny, I love that. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Why that
Let's
AI?
get let's get back to the Z.ai. Don't give the steak, just give the sizzle. What else you got on there? Else you got in your bag of tricks?
Definitely. All right. So the next thing that's actually rather important is the following. So if you actually think about the price. Now, the reason why we're stressing on the price is because many of the people don't understand how expensive these models are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the leaderboard again. And the reason why I'm bringing up leaderboard is because you guys can get comparison. So let's actually give a little sneak peek because just showing the price of what it costs per month doesn't really do it justice. So check this out, guys. So if you see here, the top of the leaderboard itself is GPT 5.2 Pro. Now, it is the top of the leaderboard right now, but I want to show it as comparison. Now, it is not the standard price, so don't get sticker shock. So inputs per million tokens, and just so everybody understand, a token is how the model breaks up the actual word or words into certain pieces. So a token typically might be a syllable, it might be a word if it's too short, if it's short, it breaks it up in its own sense. Now, those are called tokens. Now, they've standardized it based on a million tokens. So if you're actually putting in text, they say, hey, a million tokens, what is it going to cost me? So GPT, which is OpenAI's price, is going to cost me $21 to throw in a million tokens. To come back out, getting back out a million tokens, it's $168. Now, that's a really, really expensive price. That's not the standard. So let's look at GPT 5.2, the standard price. So it's $1.75 for input of a million tokens, and output is $14. So just to give you an idea, Gemini, which is Google's offering, is about $2 on input and $12 on output. Not older version, faster versions of Flash is 50 cents input and $3 output. So you can see here, it's about a dollar, $2 roughly input, and anywhere from $3 to $15 as output. When you look at the price, when you scroll down to GLM is 60 cents per million tokens and $2.20 for a million output tokens. So when you look at it, it's actually, you have to say to yourself, this is really, really a great price comparatively, especially if it's in the top 10 list of the large language models. So it's really a good contender if you're a developer that you need to actually have potential access to this model. I know we actually have at least one developer on the call that I can confirm is an amazing developer. I don't necessarily mean to put anybody on the spot, but if you want to chime in on anything with respect to being able to look at Z.ai, if you have any questions on that, you could definitely ask about that. All right, AI Johnny, What do you think about the price?
What was that price for the 5.2? 168
Well,
to
that's
our
5
two.
point
So they're charging.
that that's 5.2 Pro. Technically, nobody's using 5.2 Pro, so I don't even know why they put it on this on the leaderboard here, but it's there because it's available. But the real price for 5.2 non-Pro is about $1.75 and $14. You can
So
ignore
it's
the $21.
700% of what they charge over at Z.ai.
Yeah,
700%. So if
yeah.
that's one of your line items, I mean, I can't imagine what GP 5.2 would give you that Z.ai wouldn't.
Yeah,
So
you're
why would I
definitely
pay
right.
7 times as much? So they're going to lose their largest players. GPT is going to lose their largest players to Z because if that's a real line item, if you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on your tokens, then you would be saving basically hundreds of thousands of dollars by switching over to the new kids on the block.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. And guys, I want to let's take a step back here and actually show something that's really important. Um, so I have been a developer, a software engineer for over 20 years, and I've worked at many different companies, and it's very clear that companies are very price sensitive, right? So AI John is very, very, very correct when they say, "Hey, if it's 7 times more expensive than than why would you not just switch?" And in the bureaucratic world in the US, and again, whoever's watching this, I want everyone to understand that we're in a global playing field. And if a developer actually comes to a manager and says, "Hey, I found this really amazing tool that is Z.ai," that is the first step of introducing something brand new to the corporate world. And then what will happen is there's usually a cost benefit analysis that's done that says, "Hey, why should I adopt Z.ai versus not use OpenAI's more expensive model?" And then what would happen is they would do a cost benefit analysis, do procurement, and they'll actually figure out why should they do it. But the first most important thing is that developer discovering that tool to then bring that conversation to that manager. And then eventually Z.ai may get adopted depending if they pass their security audits, if they pass all their budget, all those things. The problem that these international companies have is the discoverability problem. That engineer will never, ever, ever bring Z.ai if they don't even know about it. And that's what we're trying to do here on hidden AI gems, just a taste, to at least bring awareness so everybody can understand these amazing hidden gems. Because I can guarantee you, if we will poll 95% of my coworkers who I've worked with for 20 years, they've probably never heard of Z.ai, right? So that's hopefully that answers the question, AI Johnny.
The developers that you talk about that need to find Z.ai and then bring it to their manager who ultimately runs it up the pipeline to the CFO,
Yeah.
right? Um, the person who's responsible for finding stuff that's going to radically change the billing going out of the company is the CFO. So if the developer fails to find it or fails to recognize its value or fails to give it to the manager or the manager fails to give it to the CFO and the CFO doesn't implement it and then the competitors do and they get hit really hard because they're spending 7 times as much money on their tokens as their direct competitor who found Z.ai, you know who gets fired? The CFO. So the CFO needs to be keeping an eye on these large language models. He needs to be going to LLM stats and finding these things and doing a cost analysis and not allowing his munchkins in the mailroom to do this for him. Because even if they fail, they won't get fired. He will, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely true, yeah, Johnny. But one of the things that's really, really hard is that these CFOs don't even know that Z.ai exists, and that's the problem, right? It's not even on their radar. So what we're doing here is having these water cooler discussions and say, "Hey, guess what I found out on Airhead Institute today? Do you know their large language model of choice is actually Z.ai?" And if they actually have that conversation now. that word gets spread and they understand that, you know what, Z.ai is actually talking about a water cooler. Let me go see what the price is, and then eventually they'll learn about it. So, being good stewards of the money, I definitely agree with you that CFOs should make the right decision. But unfortunately, they're just probably not even aware, or they should be using our large language model of the month, like Perplexity, to go say what is the cheapest largest language model that I can actually get
Yeah.
for the best bang for the buck.
Well, let's suffice it to say that what impressed me about it is how fast it was and how quickly it passed all those benchmarks on LLM stats to make it onto the number 6 position on the leaderboard. But it seems to me that the pricing seems to be a pretty decent 1-2 punch. We've got all the bang of a GL of a ChatGPT, of a Grok, of a Gemini, but our prices are, look at Claude, $25. GLM 4.72. That's 12 times as much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are two good reasons to explore switching your model if you're buying and selling tokens or buying tokens to switch over to Z.ai, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? Yeah, Johnny. So I'll talk to you a little bit about Claude. So I know we did Claude in the month of December as our large language model of the month. So we did a whole entire episode on Claude. It was called Santa Claude, and we actually went really really deep on that. Now the thing that I wanted to bring up was the following. So in Santa Claude, the reason why we actually did that itself as the large language model of the month for December was the following. Claude is really amazing, and they have a really good niche market in terms of being a developer friendly large language model. Now, Claude itself, developers will spend the extra money to use Claude because it's really, really good at writing code. Now, unfortunately, Anthropic, which owns Claude, they're not fighting the same battles as OpenAI. They're not fighting the same battles of, they're not going after that model. What GLM is doing is actually rather interesting. And I'll give you guys a little interesting. So the reason why they call it GLM, can anybody guess why it's called GLM and not a LLM? It's actually rather interesting. Anybody want to take a
Giant
guess?
language model,
Yeah, so
gigantic language model.
that would be a good guess. That would be a good guess. So it actually is a general language model. Now, the reason why they're
Mhm.
going after that market is because they're not going to try to compete with Anthropic. Now, what's funny is if you look on their website, their marketing website, I'll make this a little bit better. If you notice, they actually are just a few points behind Claude, which is a really, really great model. So what's funny is Anthropic, you mentioned it's $25 versus $2, so it's 12 times more expensive. If, say, for example, the benchmarks itself are true and the developers do use it, I don't think any developer, if it's this close to Claude, would pay $25 versus the $2 for using Claude, right? It just doesn't make sense. So I think you're absolutely right, right, yeah, Johnny. If they were just aware of this amazing tool for a better price point, this is not worth this increase of I think is about 31 points. This 31 points is not big enough to justify paying 12 times more in pricing.
Yep. So that's how you market it. You bring these charts up, right? And you try to target the financial office of your client.
Definitely,
Because
definitely.
I think the finance office needs to know this stuff because the developers, you say they won't pay that much, but really they're not paying it. The CFO is paying it. It's not their
Yep,
money.
yep, yep. All right, so we're gonna just ask people. We're about 5 minutes away from the actual show closing. So there's only one thing we actually want to hit on, but I want to give everybody a chance to be able to ask questions because this is a relatively hidden gem, right? I'm sure if you actually go to the water cooler, I know we're in the lunch hour now at the Airhead Institute season 8 episode, but if you guys go over to your water cooler and say, hey, have you guys actually heard about Z.ai, right? You can actually say you heard about Z.ai here first, at Airhead Institute. So does anybody have any questions before we actually wrap up for Z.ai? Does anybody have any, comments or anything? I would love to actually hear your thoughts on that. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. All right. AI Johnny, um, let me tell you also. Oh, so Abdul actually has a question. I'm gonna bring it up in the chat. All right. So Abdul's actually asking a really cool question is how long has Z.ai been around? So when we were doing our research on Perplexity, so we did a search on Perplexity, and I'm just going to bring up my notes here. I have this one specifically behind the scenes, and thank you, Abdul, for asking that question. So the company itself was actually founded in 2019 as a spin-off from, I'm going to butcher this name because I don't necessarily know how to pronounce the Chinese, letters. So it's Tsinghua University Department of Computer Science and Technology. So then they operated until mid 2025 under the name Zaipu AI. Again, if I'm butchering that name, I apologize. And then they rebranded to Z.ai for global expansion. So Abdul, depending on when you want to count when they started, so I would say 2019 is when they officially started as a spin-off from that computer science and technology department. So, if you count 2026 is not really here, not really a year, you can actually count from 2019. So they're about, 6 years old. Very good question, Abdul. And this is something actually you're welcome, Abdul. This might be something might be culturally relevant. So they are considered one of China's AI tigers. Now, that may not be a common word in the US, but what I learned was it is a term for the country's top AI startups. It is a direct competitor to OpenAI and Anthropic in the Asian market. So the fact that they actually are one of the AI tigers is actually quite impressive. Coming from a startup in 2019 and actually going IPO in 2025 is actually really fast. So really, really impressed with their progress. All right, AI Johnny. We're almost at time. Any last minute additions?
I'm going to skip over the challenge, but I will post the challenges in our message board, things that people can do to test the resilience and the speed of Z.ai. So that's in the message board. There is some news, quick hit on today's biggest story. Z.ai officially rang the bell with its landmark IPO. This might be a week old. I remember raising hundreds of millions and cementing its place as the first major LLM to go public. Shares are trading actively, signaling strong investor belief in the open, affordable frontier AI. The takeaway: momentum is building fast for models that empower everyone. I'll do a quick recap. So if you want to just run that music, Z.ai delivers leaderboard topping performance, radical affordability, and true open weights, lightning speed, and historic momentum, all in one package. The big idea, the real gems in AI aren't locked behind paywalls. They're the ones that open doors for everyone. Tomorrow, or next week, I guess, we're going to dive into another emerging powerhouse, how new multimodal open models are blending vision and language in ways that'll blow your mind. You don't want to miss that. So I'd like to finally sign off. I'm AI Johnny, and I'm here with AI Junior. I think we've successfully discovered a gem here. We hope you'll go to Z.ai and play with it yourself. So that's a wrap, Airheads. Congratulations to the entire Z.ai team on today's milestone, and we'll see you all tomorrow at noon Eastern time.
Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
Welcome to Season 8 of Airhead Institute, your 45-minute power-up at noon Eastern. This season, we're cutting through the noise. Mondays, we get answers with Perplexed. Tuesdays, watch the battle unfold in the TTV Showdown. Wednesdays, we explore the takeover with AI jacking. Thursdays, we uncover hidden AI gems, just a taste. And Fridays, we enter the mind of the machine in the Musk Matrix. We're making AI practical, powerful, and accessible for everyone. No tech background? No problem. Whether you're a student, teacher, or lifelong learner, just show up. Guided by your hosts, AI Junior and AI Johnny, we're keeping it bold, brainy, and built for real-world impact. AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. Don't get left behind.